There we go. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Hi, guys. This is a new system. It's brand new, and I'm figuring out on the go. So hopefully it works. Hopefully it... Oh, my goodness. That was a lot. My heart's pounding. Welcome, everyone. Man. Woo. My name is Jonteshia. If you don't know who I am, welcome back to my page. For those who have been following me for a little bit and or are my friends, for anyone new, welcome. Welcome to Serenity Now, episode 3 with me, your host, Jonteshia. Man, that was a lot. I'm stressed out. Today, we're going to be talking about expectations and disappointment and how important that is, because a lot of times we expect things in our life and it just goes to poop, and we get disappointment and we feel all types of things with it. Bear with me. Like I said, this is a new system for me. So I'm going to be asking questions to make sure you can hear me. Give me thumbs up if you can hear me. I got the whatchamacallit on the side. My heart is beating so fast. I was like, oh man, I hope I did this right. And then the screen was black. I was like, oh no. I'm going to have to make a better background before I come in, so that you guys know what you're coming into. So give me a thumbs up if you could hear me loud and clear. Also, let me know if the picture is grainy or not, because the last time I tried going on, it was a little grainy. So just let me know. Thumbs up, good to go, and then we will get started. Oh my gosh. If you haven't already, and you've been following for a little while, go ahead and subscribe. Okay, so I added my YouTube channel on here. My YouTube channel is Jonteshia. I haven't posted anything on there in quite some time until now. So if you would like to, please go there and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell so you get the notifications for when I do go live. And if you haven't done so on Streetlights Unity Movement Facebook page, do that as well. And if you haven't done so on my Facebook personal profile, please do so as well, so you could get all of those notifications. And if you're new, welcome. Don't worry about all that till the end when you figure out whether you like me or not. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It looks good. Everything's good. Cool. We're ready to roll. Okay, man. Here we go. Okay, so expectations and disappointment. We're going to start off with our serenity prayer, because Serenity Now. And with everything going on, I'm in California, and there are huge fires out in our hills. And they're going pretty good, and they don't have any time stopping right now. Our sky, so it's like a good thing and a bad thing right now. It has brought down the heat a little bit. So the sun isn't pounding on the windows, but the sky is blotted out with smoke and ash from the fire, which is unfortunate, because if there's anybody living over there, that also means destruction for them as well. So my sky is covered with smoke, smoke and ash. So praying for them, lifting them up, and the firefighters who are out there doing the best work they can to manage this fire and hopefully put it out soon, and hopefully no one gets injured or hurt. I know they're going to lose some things, and I'm praying for them that everything works out to the good for their benefit through this disaster. Period. So yeah, let's start with the serenity prayer, because like I said, times right now are a little crazy, a little wonky. And we all need to just calm down. Also, my heart's still pounding. We're trying to get this going, so bear with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, open our spiritual eyes, ears, heart, and understanding from whatever we're supposed to learn today in this world and through this message, so that we can be better after this and to help others along the way. In Jesus' name, that will be done. Amen. All right. So I want to start off with a quote, and it's going to be funny. It's going to sound funny, but when I heard it, I was kind of going through I was kind of going through a struggle of identities almost, right? And that was Cash has been pushing me. I've been putting it off. When we met, I've been pushing it off for a while, and so coming live and sharing, what I have and what I've learned, and encouragement and faith and all those things. I procrastinated and put it off for quite some time, and my closest friends will attest to that. And since starting to work with Cash, he's kind of been pushing me past that. And I used to get this. I would get, and I still struggle with it sometimes now. My identity, who I should be in front of the camera, how should I be in front of the camera? What should I do in front of the camera? And for a little while there, I know that sometimes when we're living this life, and especially now, with all the lockdowns and everything is pretty much virtual right now, it's really easy to compare ourselves to or our lives to what we see virtually, when they're only snippets of reality, right? They're only snippets. They're not the full circle of what's going on. And so I would struggle with, who am I in front of the camera? Who should I be? Who am I supposed to be? What should I do? How should I say it? What should I share? How much into my face should I go? How outside of that should I go? And I'm constantly reminded with kind of the same thing. Just be yourself. Just where you're at, be yourself. God will put you into the place you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And as long as you're trusting in him, as long as I'm trusting in him, and I pray to help guide me through the way, then my steps should be pretty accurate, especially if I tie it all in to glorify him at the end of the day. Speaking unity and peace and love is the ultimate goal for all of us anyways, right? So the quote is from Frida. It's Thor's mom. She says, "Everyone fails at who they're supposed to be, Thor. The measure of a person, of a hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are." And when I heard that, I don't know why something so simple, right? It sounds simple, but it blew my mind, and it really spoke to me at the time. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Just do it your way. A lot of the times when I come live, if there's a message, it's rare that I'll go live with a spur of the moment message. But if I do, I'm pretty emotional most of the time. But then with something that I've planned, I tend to teach more. And then I try to converse as I'm going through it. I can get loud, I can get animated, I can get all of those things, but I have to be honest with who I am and how God created me to be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to embrace that. And the reason why I share that is because those were the expectations that I had of myself, that I had to look a certain way, that I had to speak a certain way, or that I had to try and reach the level of someone else that I was seeing or that I was working with. Because they were awesome on what they did. But that's the point, isn't it? We're all awesome at something specific to us, right? I can't do what you do as well as you do it, or them or me, right? You can't, for me, you can't do it as well as I do it, because you're not me and I'm not you. So I've learned how to let go of those specific expectations. And it's not like one day I let it go and then it never came back and I never struggled with it again. I do struggle with it as I continue to go. And so it's a constant reminder. It's a constant thing that I have to make a choice, because life is about choices, on who I want to be, what I want to do, what kind of word or message I want to put into the world. And as long as I'm doing what God has showed me to do, and as he leads me, then I feel I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right things with the right people. And I got to trust in that and let go of the expectations of what I think it's supposed to look like versus what it actually looks like, and learning as I go. So I learned that along the way, and this is part of the reason why I want to share this, because we get caught up in expectations of what it's supposed to be so many times, whether it's a situation or our life or ourselves or our partners or our kids or our friends or all of these things, or what we should be doing in this world, or how far we should be in terms of success should we be? What it's supposed to look like? And that is a downfall for us. It's a double-edged sword, because it's a good goal to have, to strive for things better, but at the same time, it stops you in your tracks from your own potential and your own growth and the things that you could learn along the way. That's why this was one of the things that I wanted to share, or to kind of break down with you guys and talk to you about it, because of that. So, and if I don't see all your comments all the time, bear with me as I'm going through some notes, and then as we talk. Today the kids are on minimum day, so I have a little bit longer to go over this with you, but I'm going to try and not go crazy. Native of California, living in SEO. How do I? Yeah, there we go. My neighbors all burn yard debris. I tell them I don't burn, because in California you could set the whole county on fire. Yes, thank you, Wanda, for sharing that. Yeah, the fires out here are nuts. They're nuts. All right, as we go, if you haven't shared this already, please feel free to share, or invite your friends to watch this. Here we go. All right, so expectations stem from our own desires. Now, I'm going to use some scripture in here, because when I learned that's where I kind of go to get my understanding and clarity of things, scriptures just kind of come to my mind, because that's my life and it works for me. I hope it works for you. James 1:13-25 in the NIV says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. And your desire doesn't have to necessarily be evil. It's just your own, in a spiritual sense, like your flesh, right? Wanting to pull you this way when your spirit is telling you to go this way. And you know that one thing, you are tempted by it because you know you should probably not be doing it. And that's where the temptation comes from, tempting you to do something you know that you're trying to stay away from, or you're trying not to do, or you shouldn't do, when you should be going this way. So that's why it's evil desire, because walking into something that we shouldn't be doing is not beneficial for us in the end. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death, which, when we say death of your spirit, death of your spiritual person inside you, what makes you light up, what makes you glow, what makes you vibrant and joyous and grateful and living in thanksgiving, living in love, versus constantly going down this road of choices that you shouldn't be making. No, you shouldn't be making them, but are continuing to make them, which ends up leading to sadness and pain and hurt and dysfunction in your brain about yourself. Does that make sense? Do I primarily? Yes, that's like, I have the book that I'm reading. Okay, the Bible, the hard copy Bible that I have had for a very long time is New King James Version. And then I switched to NIV in my phone. But I use multiple. So I switch between, depending on if I want a better breakdown of things. I use the dictionary. I look certain things up. I research a little, and then for a better, a little bit more breakdown of verses, I go between the NLT, the New King James, NIV, and the Message, depending on how that's broken down. But the Bible that I have now is the NIV, and in my phone app, it's the NIV. But I just bought myself a hard copy Bible that has all of them, so I don't have to keep switching from my phone to a book. So I hope that answers your question. So unchecked desire becomes expectations, which turn into wants, which turn into needs. So if we're constantly thinking about what we should have, who we should be, what we should be doing, if we want to look like this or whatever. Those expectations that we have, they're not bad, right? Because they can essentially help you create goals to better your life, better your person, right? To help you improve yourself. Because that's also part of self-love, right? If you love yourself, then you are exceedingly paying attention, like a lot, like you're paying attention to what's adding to your life instead of what's taking away. So those expectations that you hope to be, you hope to get to that one place, as long as you're paying it, it has to be flexible. Your expectations have to be flexible. It can't be solid. If it's solid and it continues to stay that way, it turns into a want, and then it turns into a need. And if it's something that you need, we tend to do these things, do anything and everything in order to fulfill that need. And it doesn't matter. And that's what kind of takes us down this rabbit hole. This leads us to coveting or envy of other people, things that we see. We see our friends or our neighbors or our family or whatever. We see them doing X, Y, Z, or we see them, maybe they have, really good style, or they do their makeup well, or their hair, or whatever it is. They're driving this, or they're going on trips, or I don't know, they look like they're the best, mom and parent or kids, whatever. You see all these things. And then you eventually compare your life to theirs. And when you do that, you begin to covet, you begin to envy what they have, which then dissatisfies you with what you already have. It leads to unhappiness, not being content, not satisfied. It leads to doubt and worry and self-defeating talk and so on. It changes our behaviors and thoughts and patterns and affects the people around us. So you have to be careful. It's good to want to improve your life. It's good to want to improve yourself. It's good to want to improve the people, improve or help the people around you to be better, right? It's good to want those things. It's dangerous to think that it has to be that way, that it needs to be that way. It's dangerous to get into that place of your mind, because then you start changing your behaviors, and then your behaviors within yourself and your normal patterns and your behaviors towards others, because those expectations then tell you that they need to be a certain way. And if they're not that way, then there's something wrong and you're dissatisfied with the situation as it currently is. Very dangerous. These are expectations from our own desires of what we want to see, what we want from ourselves, what we want from the people around us, what we want from the situations around us. That's like that success thing, right? If then, and I'm going to get there to the if then statements that we tell ourselves or that we believe and that we condition ourselves, or that the world and society condition us to believe is true. How do you get back to a place of happiness after losing a child? Because I got to be honest, I put a smile on for everyone else, but I am broken inside, but no one wants to see that part of me, so I bury it. And you shouldn't bury it. Those are really, really deep things. Those are deep and personal and emotional things. And that leads me to the expectation of others, right? Trying to live up to the expectation of others, or the expectations we have for ourselves, what it's supposed to look like, how quickly we're supposed to move on, or this or that. And really, at the end of the day, no one can tell you what your journey is supposed to look like, right? Serenity to accept the things I can't change, and the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We don't control anyone or anything outside of ourselves. We control only ourselves and how we react to the world around us, or the things that we see, or the things that we believe. Something like that. I mean, who would put an expectation on that? I think that it's wise to choose your state of being when you can and when you're okay with it. As far as accepting someone's expectation on how you should be after something like that, I personally don't think that's right. I don't think that those expectations should be put on you. But there is a time and place for things. That's a really, really personal thing. And it's so emotional and it's so deep. Only you can decide on how you're going to accept moving on without feeling guilty about it. Right? How do you get to a place where you don't feel guilty about learning to live your life after something like that? I think there's a guilt that comes with it. The would-haves, the could-haves, the should-haves. Right? That's a journey. That's a long journey, Lori, and I'm sorry. My heart is with you to go through something like that. You're not alone. You are not alone. We are all here. If you ever need to vent, if you ever need to just let your heart out, you can message me and I will listen and I will try to encourage you as much as I can. But know that you're not alone. You are not alone in feeling how you feel. Does that mean stay in the darkness, stay in the grief? No, it doesn't mean stay in the grief. But again, you can choose the moments where you're just not up for it today. And you can choose the moments and the times where you are going to try and enjoy life with the other people that you love without accepting the expectations of other people of how you should be, think, look, or act. I hope that helps. Expectations of others. Romans 12:2 says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Now, I capitalize the word learn because it is a learned behavior. It doesn't just happen. You have to change, the condition of your mind and the condition of your heart. And when the world and everything around you is telling you that you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to believe in this or that, or not that, but this, because if you don't, then this. When the world is pushing so very hard, we have to be able to be strong and have courage and be brave to plant our feet right in the ground and push back. And decide for ourselves what we're going to believe, what we're going to choose, how we're going to live. Because that's your right as a human being. God gave you free will. He gave you the power to choose what you want to do, who you want to be, who you're going to follow. Essentially, who you're going to have faith in. Yes, it would be amazing. It would be great if we chose to follow God, but it's your choice if you do so or not. I encourage you to. Yes. Someone there? My kids keep opening the door. I'm waiting for them to come around the corner. We do not control our circumstances. Only how we deal with them. God's strength in our weakness gives us peace of mind. Put less focus on the approval of others and more focus on God's glory through our story. Focus on God's glory through our story. When I wrote that, when I heard that, I was like, oh, yes, that sounds really good. Through our story. In other words, the positive aspects of your story, lessons and wisdom learned. So whatever your story might be, instead of focusing on the negative parts and the painful parts and the hurtful parts and the parts that you're not really sure how to get past, instead of focusing on those, focus on the positive things, the lessons that you can learn from this, the different perspective that you can gain through whatever it is, whatever the struggle might be. That way, even though life is hard, what people are saying, and not that you're living your life for other people, but there's always someone watching. Even if you think no one's paying attention, even if you think that you are alone, you're not. There's always someone watching. There's always at least one person watching what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're thinking. what you're putting out there. Whether they're learning from it or they want to hate it or they want to catch you in some kind of mix-up or whatever, there's always someone watching. And again, not that you should be living your life for the people who are watching, right? But to live in integrity, to live knowing that your choices that you can live with later, that every choice that you make later on, when you look back, you're going to be okay with the choices that you made. But the ones that you maybe were like iffy on, you're like, I don't know about that choice. At least if you're living in such a way to where you change your perspective of not focusing on the negative things and instead you're focusing on the things that you can learn from those messed up situations, at least you can look back and say, but I did learn this. I did grow in X and XYZ way. You gonna make some? Okay, just don't make a mess, and make sure you put everything away.
What do I put away? The sink?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. If you can reach it.
Which one?
The sink?
I was going to say the bathtub.
No, just put the kitchen sink. Just move it onto the other side, and make sure that's under it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the expectations of others. It says more about what the person is dealing with than it says about you as a person. So let me go through this and then I'll get back to my thought. So when other people are putting expectations on you, or they're making you feel a specific way about something that you're doing or you're not doing, it says more about them than it says about you as a person. You later have to reflect on that and figure out whether or not there's some truth to what they're saying. Not that you're conforming to whatever they're expecting of you, but just as a positive food for thought to help yourself grow. If there's some truth to what they're saying, only you can decide that. Does this mean that we shouldn't do some self-reflection? No, of course not. You should always do some self-reflection in any time of conflict, because times of conflict give us the ability to self-reflect, because a conflict is not about looking at somebody and pointing fingers and telling them you did this, this, and this. Granted, whether they did those things, there's two of you or more that are adding to whatever the conflict is or whatever the discussion is. Therefore, you have a part to play. So if you have a part to play and there's some kind of breakdown in communication, wouldn't it make sense, or wouldn't it be wise to reflect on, well, how did I say it? What was my tone? Is there another way that I could have said it for it to be heard efficiently, right? Heard in the way that I meant it versus the way that they heard it. Most people hear things differently. Men and women hear and process things differently. We should look inside ourselves and ask whether there is room for improvement and figure out what small changes, not huge changes, not overall changes, but small changes we can make before automatically shrugging it off. That's different than seeking approval. So seeking approval would be like someone said you should do this because, this, whatever, some expectation they're putting on you. They expect you to change immediately everything that you're doing. And if you're like, oh, I better do that, otherwise they're not going to like me, or they're not going to be my friend, or I'm going to constantly feel, this way or whatever. So I better do it so we're not fighting or we're not whatever. So that would be seeking approval and wrapping your head around it constantly, like you're thinking about it all the time. Well, if I don't do this, then this is what's going to happen, or they're going to say this, or they're going to make me feel this way. And in order to not feel that way, you're almost shamed into making the change, versus looking inside yourself after something happens and reflecting on, are there any small changes that I can make so that whatever I brought to the table comes out in positivity, comes out clearer, so that my words aren't mixed up, or so that my actions are more positive. Does that make sense? Now, shame, because we all feel shame when we don't meet something, when we don't meet some type of expectation, or when we don't meet it, right? It doesn't matter what it is. If we're not meeting something, we feel shame. Shame is both a noun and a verb. Shame is the painful feeling, because that's what it makes us feel. It makes us feel pain in some way. The painful feeling arising from the consciousness of something dishonorable, improper, ridiculous, etc., done by oneself or another. So when we're not meeting specific expectations, am I back? Am I back, you guys? Give me some thumbs up if I'm back. Some thumbs up, guys. Waiting for them to come in. Am I back? If not, I'll have to log out and restart it. Okay, good. All right. Whew. I was like, oh no. All right, cool. Okay. Back to what I was saying. All right, we were talking about shame. Shame and the shame that we feel or that is brought on from expectations of others, not just ourselves, but also from others. And the shame is both a noun and a verb. And the noun definitions of shame are the painful feeling arising from the consciousness of something dishonorable, improper, ridiculous, done by oneself or another. It also means disgrace. The verb, that meaning shame as a verb is to cause to feel shame or to drive force through shame, like shamed into doing it. So it is both a feeling, a thing that you feel, a feeling, but it is also an action to put onto someone else because we're expecting something from other people. Now, are there things that we should expect from other people? Yes, of course. That's how you build trust. However, in order to not get stuck in that disappointment or the trust that is broken or being stuck in a shameful feeling from that expectation that was not met or that was broken or any of those things, we have to learn how to be a little bit flexible, right? Adapting to and from. Not saying you're expecting, so what's the saying? Expect the best and hope for the best and expect the worst. I always like to say hope for the best and prepare for the worst, right? So that you're not expecting something bad to happen, because then how can you hope in something that you don't see, that you're not sure is going to happen, or that you're hoping to happen, but you're expecting that it might happen, right? How do you do that? So I personally like to say, hope for the best and prepare for the worst, right? Prepare for in the event that something that you didn't expect to happen or that you were hoping not to happen happens, you're at least prepared in such a way that you can move like water with it, right? You can move, you can adapt. A huge wave might smash you in the face, but you're still swimming. That's what I mean. And we can be shamed into those expectations. We can be shamed into doing something because somebody else expects it from us when it's not fair, right? Expectations that we have on other people. Because at the end of the day, we're all stories and lessons that we've learned from our life, right? Everything that we went through as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, unto our wherever you're at in life, right? We are a result of lessons learned, lessons missed, and experiences that we've been through. Whether we accept the good or don't, or accept the bad, it doesn't really matter. We are made up of all of those things to make us who we are today. Does that mean that we'll never be able to change going forward? No, of course not. We will definitely be able to move forward if we allow ourselves to, and if we take control of how we're seeing things in the perspective that we allow ourselves to have about ourselves and the world around us. Now, synonyms for disappointment: failure, defeat, frustration, mistake, obstacle, setback, discouragement. If you've ever felt any of those things because of the expectations you had for yourself, for things or on yourself personally or in your life, or the progress of your life, the progression of your life, or the expectations from other people coming in, if you felt any of those things, that is a disappointment of not meeting whatever those are. So if you've ever felt those things, try and think about, I think it's like a good flag, right? A red flag. If you felt those things because you weren't living up to some expectation or ideal of what it's supposed to look like, then it's a good chance that you're trying to live up to expectations that will never happen. Because at the end of the day, none of us are perfect. We're never going to be perfect, period. There's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. And if you continue to strive for that, you will constantly be left with disappointment, because you're not going to do everything right all the time. And in order to learn lessons and to grow, you got to struggle somewhere. Sometimes you got to fall or trip a little bit in order to figure something out. My husband likes to say, sometimes you just got to let it fail so that you can see what didn't work, so you can try something else. Because sometimes we're so positive that whichever way we're doing it or whatever's doing, like it's the right way. Like we know without a doubt, until something happens that tells us, it reminds us that we're not right. We weren't doing it quite the right way, and that maybe we should take some of our friends' suggestions or wisdom, right? Some of their suggestions or guidance. Living this way in our mind, we set ourselves up for a cycle of failure, essentially leading an if-then type of life, right? We see that all the time for success. Success means that if I get this, then I'll be happy. When in all actuality, if you do not get to that for whatever reason in the time frame that you set, it automatically means that you're a failure and disappointment because you didn't reach that specific expectation. Now, I'm not saying that having goals is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you're setting unrealistic expectations for yourself, or you're trying to live up to unrealistic expectations from someone else, you're going to constantly live in a life cycle of disappointment and failure, feeling like you're a failure, like you can't do anything right. And the problem with this is that this is something we continue to tell ourselves over and over and over and over, conditioning ourselves in our mind to believe that we are failures and that we're never going to get there. We're never going to lose 20 pounds. We're never going to be happy because, right? My spouse is never going to be because my kids are, you know what I'm saying? Like you continue to tell yourself this over and over and over, then you will believe it, and you will not see anything else, and you will constantly live in that state. And that's a very, very, very sad state to be in. If then statements that affect the human behavior, right? Like I was just saying. It's like a program in our brain, like our brains are the computer, and we're entering this input. This is the data that we're entering into our computers that become a formula that automatically runs all the time. And every time we see this or feel this or whatever, it is automatic reaction. And those are the words and the things that keep coming up in our mind. If A happens, then the system is supposed to do B. If A happens, then I'm supposed to do B, right? My brain is thinking if A happens, then I have to react this way when that happens. So if it doesn't happen, then your brain doesn't have that function in there, okay? So if A is not happening, then my brain is telling me that I can't feel that. I can't feel what B is supposed to provide, which is happiness, satisfaction, contentment, right? Joy, gratitude, all of those things, because A isn't happening. That's the input that we put into our brain. So if A is not happening, we're not reaching it by formula that we're adding into ourselves, then I can't be happy and I can't be all those things and I can't be satisfied because I haven't reached A to B. Simply put, a way of thinking that we repeat over and over to ourselves, we eventually accept it as true, as fact. And it then becomes automatic. Example, which I've already said, if I obtain this, if I obtain X, then I will be happy. If this is not achieved, the brain automatically responds with the opposite of happy, because that's what we have programmed in our system. A program that has resulted in a strong association that is undesirable. So you think reverse psychology. How do you fix this? It is something that you attempt to do, and you train your brain, right? You train your brain. And I've said this before, it's a scripture, right? To take captive your thoughts and train them in the ways of Christ. Train them. So training means you're practicing, you're exercising, you're growing in strength, right? This is something that you make a routine, something you do on a consistent basis. You have to train yourself to rethink, to change a story, change the input. Excuse me. Reprogramming if-then statements. So I was looking this up because psychology fascinates me. And the cognitive ability that each person has within themselves, the power of choice, the power to control what's going on within themselves and their brain and their perspective and their feelings and their emotions and their body. And yet so many of us don't believe that. So many of us believe or run on autopilot, when really, if you pull it back and you take time to reflect on things and you take time to really dig in, there's so much more power within yourself to break out of all of the wrong formulas that we've put into ourselves, to break them and rewrite them, to take back that power and the strength and the courage that we were created with in the first place. So instead of saying if A happens, then B, we say if A, then C instead of B, right? To retrain, to reprogram, to reroute the formula. You start small to not overload your mind. Have to have steps to create a new program. Again, it's about consistency. It takes 14 days to get used to something and 28 days to make a habit. And then it becomes a way of life the longer that you do it. And that is the point. If you're changing the story, you can change the narrative that plays on in your head constantly, so that you can be more positive, so that you can be free from the shackles that you have accepted to place on yourself in your mind. Changing the story we tell ourselves and ultimately believing it. So many years ago in high school, I was choked. And instead of fighting back, I let it happen. There's more context to the story that I'm not going to get into, because none of that matters. Right now, what matters is what happened and how I changed the thought in my mind, how I changed my body's behavior, how I changed my behavior after that point, so that I was no longer afraid, or so that I didn't have flashbacks, right? So I was choked many years ago. And every time someone went to grab me here or grab me close to my neck, I'd freak out. And I didn't know what it was at first, but it was automatic. It was an automatic response to that because of the experience that I had. Now, this was a problem if I was trying to build any type of relationship with someone else. I wanted to be able to trust them, and I did trust them, but because I went through experience, right, through this experience, I had a hard time whenever they would just try to, be close. I would freak out, and it would freak them out in turn because, whoa, like, why are you flinching when I'm doing that? I care about you. I love you. You're important to me. Friends, it didn't matter. Any type of any type of relationship, a platonic relationship, an intimate relationship, a family relationship. Whenever I would freak out. I would flinch. So I learned. I was like, how do I stop this? How do I stop this? Because it wasn't something that was going to happen right away. I had to learn how to take steps to get past it. So I tried reverse psychology on myself. So whoever I was around, whether it was my friend or it was, someone I was dating at the time, I would, because I didn't want that to be a barrier. I didn't want to be a wall between me and the other person. I wanted there to be a trust, and I wanted them to understand and know that I did trust them and that I knew that they weren't going to do that to me, right? These are things that I had to go through in my mind in order to get to that point because it wasn't their fault. So I started small little changes. I would tell them, give me your hand, and I would put their hand here. And I would be scared as it was coming up. I was like, oh shit. But I would do that slowly, and I would leave it for as long as I could handle it, and I would take it off. And then I would do it again, or I would wait for another time. And I would do this until I got to the point where they can have their hand here for a long amount of time, up until the point where I was calm and I was at peace, and I knew that I was in a safe place and that I was going to be okay. It took a while, but I had to take the small steps necessary to retrain the reaction that my brain was having because of the experience that I went through. So that's what I mean by changing the story and the input in your brain, the formula. Instead of if A, then B, instead of that, then if they, then C. We got to start rerouting the data. We got to reroute the code so that it plays out differently in our mind. So some quick verses. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper, which is to benefit or progress you, and not to harm, not for disaster, not for tragedy. That's not the pure plans of God for you, but plans to give you hope and a future." And if you have hope, then it means that you have trust that the future is going to be good regardless of what happens along the way. Because every situation, whether good or bad, good can come out of it. Lessons can come out of it. You come out wiser and stronger. Your character is shown through that, is built through that. And eventually you get to a point where when you're going through something, your automatic response is to live in that character that you've learned, a stronger version of yourself because of it. So, and that's what we mean. That's what I mean when I say there's good that comes out of everything. You just have to choose to see it and believe it and accept it instead of dwelling on the struggle itself. And Romans 8:31 says, "What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?" That is an if-then statement, right? If God is with us, then no one can be against us. If there is power, right, then nothing can defeat that. And if you believe that, and if you continue to tell yourself those things, those truths, those things that build you up and not tear you down, then you can live in your strength, in your power, and your courage, right? And in peace, because that's what serenity is. It is a state of being. Getting close to time, guys. We're gonna open it up here in a little bit, because today of all days, see how that works. Timing is everything. See how that works. My kids are on a minimum day today, and we're going, and I'm over time now, but they're on minimum day, so you guys get a little extra. If then statements. So questions. So when we're gonna open up, I'm gonna go through some of these comments here, and we're gonna chat. Questions. How do we get past this? Because everybody wants to know, right? How do we get past this? How do we thrive after disappointment? How do we avoid getting stuck in the cycle? Letting go of expectations and embracing the truth about yourself and the situation. Starting where you are and acknowledge that it is okay. So many of us believe that it's not okay to not be okay. Or we think that it's not okay to be in the situation that we're in, or to react this way, or have the feelings that we have. But really, it's okay to acknowledge where you're at and that you're not over there. It's okay. It's okay. Make small changes and celebrate them repeatedly. Just because you're not making leaps and bounds of progress, or what you believe is the type of progress or the amount of progress you're supposed to have, doesn't mean that you're not successful. Success is determined by the effort in which you put to get from A to B. Because the story is in the process. Thank you, God. The story is in the process. It's not in the result. The story is in the process. The lesson is in the process. Who you become is in the process. Not when you start and not when you end. It's in the middle. Receive God's grace in order to give yourself and others grace. Receive grace so that you can give grace. If you can't accept grace for yourself, then how do you expect to give actual grace to other people who are having a hard time, or who aren't meeting the expectations that you put on them? Just like you don't want expectations on yourself. We got to let go of the expectations. Just a few years ago, I had an expectation of what something was supposed to look like in a certain amount of time. And if it didn't happen, and because it didn't happen, I was angry, and I was disappointed, and I was upset, and I was really mad. And I told God, I said, God, I'm mad. I'm mad at you. I am mad at you. I love you. I'm not walking away from you, but I'm mad at you because I expected it to be like this. It took me about a year. It took me a year to live in it. I'd say like 6 to 9 months before I was like, okay, what's really going on? Like, something's got to give. I'm still mad. I'm still this. I'm still this. It took me 6 to 9 months to get back to the point of where I started to reflect on what was bothering me. I talked to my husband about it too, and we came to the fact, it's like, well, what were you expecting? Right? What were you expecting that made you feel this way? Like, what were you trying to get out of it? And when I got to that point, when I got to the insides of it, right, the guts of it, then I realized, oh, right, because I was expecting to see it a specific way, and because I didn't see it that way, it shattered me, like it rocked me really hard. And then it took another, 6 months before I got over myself and gave in, and not gave in, but like let go, right? Until I let go. I let go of those expectations so that I can move freely like water. All right, some of this discussion. If you have any other questions, please ask them, please. We're going to go maybe another 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Happiness is not found in having everything we want, but finding joy in what we have. Let go of what does not give you joy. Yes, exactly. Let go of what does not give you joy. However, I would say, because So I would say that's almost like a circumstantial, like depends on the situation. For the most part, if it's something that you don't need, or something that, you know, not someone, okay? Let's clarify that. Not someone. If someone isn't making you happy, if someone isn't bringing you joy, it depends on that person. If it's just someone who's in your life who constantly sucks the life out of you, you know what I mean? Then you can love them from a distance. If it's a family member, or if it's, you know, co-workers or whatever, you can love them from a distance. That is okay. That is boundaries being set. If your spouse is not bringing you joy, there are seasons for those, and there are things that you can do to work through those issues, right? I'm not condoning or saying or suggesting bye, right? Because you're not bringing me joy right now. That doesn't mean that they won't bring you joy later, right? Period. But yes, we have to learn how to find contentment right where we're at. We have to learn how to be okay right where we're at. That doesn't mean accepting less than, right? That doesn't mean settling for something that isn't benefiting you. I don't mean that. I just mean instead of looking outward at everything and thinking I need to be like that, right? Or we should look like that, or my family should look like that, or my house should look like that. Instead of looking outward for those things, we need to learn how to be present right where we're at and be happy, be content with what we have, because there are many people who don't have that. They're not experiencing that. And therefore, for us to be like, this isn't good enough, we need something more, is almost, you know, rude and disrespectful, and not appreciating where we're at and who we're with right now. Does that mean that things cannot improve? No, of course not. Of course they can improve. It just takes time and effort. Just takes time and effort. You can complain that a rose bush has thorns, or rejoice that a thorn bush has roses. Oh, that's a good spin. I didn't read it right the first time. I did not read it right the first time. You can complain about it, or you can rejoice in it. So how do we rejoice in the situation? How do we rejoice in something like that, right? Rejoice because those thorns are there for a reason. All right? They're there to protect the rose. But if you're going to collect the rose, right? If you're going to cut the rose, if you're going to prune the rose to put it on display, then you should also take the time to dethorn the rose. And if you're not going to take the time to dethorn the rose, then don't complain about the rose having thorns, right? What I think I will speak. What I speak, my eyes will search for, and wherever my eyes are looking, my feet will surely follow. So be very careful, whether it's light, whatever it is that you're speaking, whatever you're looking for, and where your feet will follow. Be careful where it is, because whatever you feed yourself the most, that's where you're going to find. That's where you're going to be. If you're feeding on the negativity, if you're feeding on the darkness, that's where your feet are going to go. That's the place where you're going to go. So be very wise in your choices to choose the lighter things, the good things, the right things, the things that add to the world and not take it away, the things that uplift and not bring down. Those things of above is what they call them. But yes, as you think, right? As you think and as you speak, so you believe. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. There's a lot of bad in people's lives. I try to focus on all the wonderful things I have. Yes. There's a lot of, everyone struggles. Everyone struggles in their own way. Everyone has issues. Everyone has to learn somehow. So 99% of the time we teach our children, and we teach, you know, ourselves and our friends, 99% of the time we teach, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Because you don't know what's inside that book. You don't know the story. You don't know what they're going through. So we must look beyond the cover and treat others how we want to be treated. And when it comes back to, again, expectations, you cannot expect people to treat you a certain way just because you treat them a certain way. You can hope that it's, hold on guys, this is really bugging me. Sorry. You can hope that they are going to reciprocate the same level of love or trust or communication or effectiveness. You can hope that you receive that in return. But treating others how we want to be treated is not about the other person. It's about us. Thank you, God. It's about us. It's about us making the choice to live peacefully with others. If we want to be treated a specific way, then we must treat others that way, right? It's more about us and the accountability that we give to ourselves than it is the accountability that we are hoping to get from other people. That's more for us than it is for someone else. Just like forgiveness is more for us than it is from someone else. Now, if there are expectations being put on you from someone that you live with or whatever, then I would totally encourage communication. Communication is huge and it goes a long way. And the only way that someone else is going to understand what it is that you're going through is by you opening your mouth and sharing your heart and how you feel. And I would also encourage you that if someone comes to you with something like that, I would encourage you to open your ears and your heart so that you can understand where they're coming from, so that you can meet in the middle, because that's how unity is formed and created, so that you could be on the same page, so that you could walk together as one in unity versus conflict constantly. Thank you, God. That's why it is important to reach out to others, and that can start a relationship to find out who they are. Can't learn from other people if you don't learn how to open up and talk. And I know this world is crazy. I know that it's scary. I know that people, are going all over the place and they're attacking everybody, right? Because people are talking and not listening. But I encourage you to continue to be the light. Continue to be the change, right? Continue to be the example, right? Because that's what we're called for. We're called to live as examples in this world. That's what the light is for. That's what the street light is. To be examples in the world, to be the light in the darkness when there's so much darkness and people aren't sure where to look or who to listen to. Now, again, bringing it back to expectations, we got to learn to have flexible expectations. Flexible expectations. That doesn't mean letting people live to a low standard. It just means having flexible expectations. Don't make it solid. Don't make it everything that it is. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a rabbit hole constantly of all these negative things versus growing from it. If you don't want expectations put on you, right, or you want to have understanding with those expectations, or you want to have flexible expectations, then we got to give the same. That's the law of generosity, right? The law of that is whatever it is that you want, you must give. If you want more time, then you got to give time. If you want love, then give love. And essentially it breaks down to, spending time with God. If you want time other things, then make time. Make time for God so that he can pour all of the things that you're asking onto you so that you can then share them with the world or the people in your life. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can talk more about disappointments. I'm going to go into the comments and we're going to continue this conversation because my time is up now. But I thank you all for being here with me. I thank you for discussing this, for listening, for commenting on the side. I will definitely go back into the comments and we're going to keep talking. Serenity is a state of mind. It is a state of being. Peace is found when you embrace the positivity in what's going on, and you let go of the negative, and you don't let it bring you down. When you let go of what it's supposed to look like, and you hold on to the hope of what it can be, and knowing that it's okay and that there is good that will come out of this. And typically trust means, trusting God that everything's going to work out, because it will. And being okay with that and not worrying, because again, we can't control anything outside of ourselves. So be the change you want to see. Be a street light. Unite, don't fight. Meet me here if you want. Again, Wednesdays, Serenity Now, Wednesdays at 11:30 right here. Let's see, this Sunday at 4, should everything work out right. Sunday at 4, Sum of All Parts. Don't forget to check out #BeTheChange with Anthony Russo. I don't know his days yet, but you can find his page on Facebook. And Speak Your Mind with Chris Chaparro. I believe he's working on a time and date for that. So that will be coming up soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. What else? There's one more. Breaking the Barriers. That is another one with Cashley Kelly. I don't know when the next one is, but that's someone to look for. And if you haven't been to Street Lights Unity Movement Facebook page, please go there and follow. I'm starting my YouTube back up, so Jonteshia at YouTube. Remember to do all the things. Click the bell, subscribe, like, share, all the good things. Let me make sure I know how to turn this off. I think it's that. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.